All right. Are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And call your next witness.
Defense calls Lieutenant Tom Smitley.
All right, sir, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right. Please adjust the microphone however it is to make it comfortable for you so everybody can hear.
Would you state your name for the jury, please?
Tom Smitley.
And how are you employed?
I'm a lieutenant with the police department here.
How many years have you been with the police department?
About 25 years now.
And what was your training as a police officer to become a police officer?
We went through a post academy and then took a state test in order to be licensed as a police officer, and then we were commissioned by the police department. There was an on-duty experience as well as field training. And then throughout my career, we went through additional continuing education, both in tactics, management, and additional legal courses as laws changed over time.
All right. And what is your position with the police department?
I'm a lieutenant, and I manage a number of operational organizations and special events as an operational chief.
So was that the position that you held in July of 2002 when this fight broke out at the hotel?
That's correct.
And you have been on the force and a police officer there at Lake Charles for the entire time, the last 10 years that there has been a bike week at the hotels. Is that right?
Yes, I've been involved in that similar capacity for the entire time.
All right. So what was your responsibility during the 2002 bike week with respect to the visitation of the bikers to Lake Charles?
Well, as operational chief, my responsibility was to develop the plan of attack for the law enforcement support of the community during this process. We were community-based and community-oriented. Obviously, with this type of organization and event, there isn't enough police officers in the state in order to support this type of program. So we have to be very careful and cautious with our limited resources to ensure adequate police protection.
Now, during the 10 years that you have been on the force and that the city had sponsored this bike week, had you ever had any experience of any fights breaking out at any of the hotels or facilities?
Not really that I can recall. I know that from a command level, there was nothing of significant impact to change our operational mode.
And is this 10-year track record important in your planning?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
Well, it gives us that opportunity each year to first evaluate the type of crowds that we have, the unique circumstances in our community and how to react to those, as well as to plan for following years if we find some critical incident or something that we can plan for better in the next year.
So as operations chief for the city, the police department, for Bike Week, did you do anything in advance of Bike Week to prepare for the safety of those who are coming to town and those who live there?
We maintain continuous intelligence with regards to the potential issues that may come up on this unique circumstance, dealing with the various clubs, organizations, and individuals. If there are police level intelligence, we try to collect that and then take appropriate action based on the credible intelligence we receive.
So intelligence is what you gather in what manner?
That information comes from all sources. It may come from informants, it may come from other agencies, it may come from the state, all different sources of information that we get. Some of it, and I use credible because we may get information that is rumor, and we try to create some credibility to that before we take action.
And is some of the intelligence gathered from informants that are actually within the biking groups?
Yes.
And does that continue? Does that intelligence gathering continue throughout the months before the event and even during the bike week?
It's constantly evolving. We also use undercover police officers at the hotels in order to gain information in real time to respond to any concerns that are raised during the events.
So when you were coming upon the 2002 bike week, Was the level of intelligence for the concern of violence any different from those 10 years previously?
The last several years, when we first started this, I think that we had some growing pains to do, but in the last several years, the level of intelligence didn't seem to be any greater or less with regards to any concerns on a law enforcement basis.
And part of your duties as operations chief was to work with the hotels and inform them as to what they might expect during the bike week?
Well, we would speak to various local organizations with regards to what to expect, but we wouldn't go to the point of providing confidential intelligence or any specific tactics that we were going to use in each event.
Okay. So did you inform the hotels, and particularly the Grand Hotel, that there was any intel that there would be a fight breakout at that hotel during Bike Week of 2002?
No, we had no specific information of any fight or violence that was going to break up at the Grand Hotel.
All right. And have you reviewed the videotapes that were available from the Grand Hotel following this breakout?
Yes, we did.
And is it normal for the hotels to have cameras?
Yes.
And what do you do as the police following an event such as this with respect to the tapes?
Well, we'll review those tapes, and they're used as evidence in any criminal proceeding. I believe that these tapes were used by the district attorney's office in evaluating criminal charges. We'll also use it from an operational standpoint to see if there's, as a debriefing option, to determine any lessons learned for the next year.
So during this week of Bike Week, you were still operations officer, is that right?
Yes.
And what were you actually working at 2 a.m. on the early morning when this fight broke out?
Yes, I was. I was on B shift, which was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. that evening.
And where were you actually located?
Well, we typically will set up a command post, which was only a few minutes away from the Grand Hotel.
So tell the jury what your strategic plan was for that week, for Bike Week, that you had formulated.
Well, the limited resources and budgets of most cities are no different for our city, and so we were able to identify through intelligence that one particular hotel had a credible threat of violence, which was the Flamingo Hotel. We dealt with some tactical advance information for that hotel. That incident was anticipated to occur Saturday evening, about 12 or 16 hours prior to the event that took place. In fact, we also evaluated a number of potential threats with regards to a coalition of gang members that was anticipated at the Grand Hotel. Coalition meaning cooperative, and that whether or not there would be some concern between that cooperative group and the Hells Angels that were staying predominantly at another hotel.
So when you got this intel related to the Flamingo Hotel, did that cause you concern that it might occur at the Grand Hotel instead?
No, there was nothing that indicated that was going to bleed over or have a different location.
From reviewing the videotapes after the event, have you seen that there, and if we could put up who's doing that? The chronology, thank you. Have you seen where one of your sergeants was there at the hotel, at the Grand?
Yes, Sergeant Hood.
All right. And according to the chronology, the first one, 2:11:30 a.m., that is when Hood had his first call to where you were at headquarters. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that was just 6 Hells Angels coming. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then if you'll go to the next, at 2:12:30 a.m., which was 1 minute later, right?
Yes.
At that time, what would you tell the jury what they were seeing in the videos?
Well, Sergeant Hood at that point was overcome by bikers, and I would even recall there were so many bikers that he would be essentially surrounded by bikers that were going through and around him as he was stopped in the travel lane of the roadway.
And were they Hells Angels?
Yes, they were Hells Angels.
All right. Then the next one is on the timeline is 2:13:59 a.m., right?
10 minutes, Councilman.
Correct.
And at that point, what was happening?
At that point, the Hells Angels were reported to have entered into the casino, and some of them were running into the casino, which indicates that there was some altercation going on inside.
So between Hood's second call to you of his concern and wanting backup to the time the Hells Angels got into the casino, that was 1 minute and 29 seconds, is that right?
Correct.
All right. And then the next thing on the timeline is at 2:15, right?
Correct.
And at that point, what was happening?
Within the video, it showed that the Hells Angels that had come into the building had reached the Rose's Bar inside the hotel.
And is Rose's Bar where the actual fight ultimately took place?
That's where the fight breaks out.
All right. So we can add that, and the time between the Hells Angels going into the casino and getting into Rose's Bar was 1 minute and 9 seconds. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. The next timeline is at 2:16:08 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
And what happens then?
That's where the kick is seen that we believe started the fight.
So the time between the Hells Angels entering the Rose Bar and the fight starting was 1 minute. Is that right?
Exactly.
And the last thing on our timeline is 2:18:52. And what happened then?
That's when you can see our uniformed officers on scene, and when we were able to
Take the bikers?
take over the scene and take control of it.
Okay, so police were there, and they take the bikers to the floor. Correct?
Correct.
So the time between the fight starting and the bikers being taken to the floor by the police officers is 2 minutes and 44 seconds. Is that right?
That's correct.
When you looked over this and the timeline, were you surprised?
Well, I was impressed by my subordinates, my officers, and their ability to take hundreds of bikers and take them under control in the time period that they were given.
So what time period do you conclude that from the time that you had notice or your reported to you until they were there on the scene and taking them down?
Well, first of all, the police department is spread very thin during these types of weekly events. We have minimum overtime due to budget constraints. We have a number of officers that are on extra hours in order to get this through. So to first of all respond to this with sufficient force from the time that we recognize that there's a problem, we have to get officers there. Then secondly is that the response time was very good for our department. And then going into the organization, you can see on the video that the bikers that generally complied with the officers' requests, and that there was not a significant use of force, and we didn't have to actually shoot at anyone or use deadly force in order to take control and maintain the peace.
All right. Your Honor, I don't know if we have another exhibit, but I'm going to mark this Defendant's Exhibit 1.
All right. Any objections?
None.
All right, defendants 1 is admitted.
Thank you. At any time during Bike Week, before this fight broke out, did you receive any call from any of the Mongols or any of the Hells Angels telling them that the Mongols had attacked a Hells Angel before this event occurred, the fight occurred?
No, we did not know of any specific grudge between the two organizations.
And did you have, with regard to your intel that was still going on during Biking Week, did you hear anything about any fight or altercation between the groups before
5 minutes,
before
Counsel.
this fight?
Yeah, actually, our intel showed that a number of the coalition groups had not shown or showed in such little number that we were anticipating that was intel that was not going to be fruitful for an actual event.
All right. So the police's first indication of a fight was how long before there was actual fight breakout?
Perhaps running into the casino would have given us some indication that there was an altercation, but once the fight was actually called was our first actual notice that a fight occurred.
All right. How would you describe the outbreak of this fight? Was it sudden, not sudden, anticipated, not anticipated?
It was spontaneous. I don't know that there was anything that would have led Sergeant Hood or any of the other law enforcement authorities to know that this was going to occur at the hotel that night.
And was there anything from your training experience, was there anything that could have been done to have prevented this fight taking place in these circumstances?
I'm not aware of anything that we could have done to anticipate this unexpected, unfortunate event.
So would you say it's absolutely unpreventable?
I believe so. I don't know how ultimately you would be able to prevent this type of tragedy.
And would you also say that this was a sudden, unanticipated act of violence?
Yes.
Okay. From your experience, 25 years in police work, and having participated in 10 biking events, would a handful of security guards with communication devices be able to stop a group of Hells Angels who were determined to get revenge for one of their members?
Absolutely not.
2 minutes, Counsel.
Your Honor, at this time I'm going to pass the witness and save some for redirect.
All right, okay.
Well done, young lady.
I like the young.
All right, tell me when you're ready to proceed.
I guess I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, proceed.
Lieutenant Smitley, it is still lieutenant, I guess, huh?
Yes, sir.
So you weren't demoted for your actions in this case?
No.
Is it really your testimony, Lieutenant, that it could not be anticipated that a violent act such as this one would have occurred during Bike Week at Lake George?
This specific event was not anticipated.
Did you understand my question?
I believe so.
Okay. Let's talk about what you did know before Bike Week started, okay, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
And you personally had briefings with the security chiefs of all of the big hotels in Lake George on a monthly basis.
Roughly, yes.
It was not roughly, it was every third Tuesday of the month, wasn't it?
I think we had 10 a year, so it wasn't
Okay.
exactly a month.
And you also talked to the executives of the hotels, including the Grand Hotel, on a monthly basis.
Sure.
And some of the things that you told them immediately before Bike Week of 2002 was that there were potential problems with these, in your words, outlaw biker gangs. Isn't that what you told them?
Absolutely.
And you also told them that some of the outlaw biker gangs at Bike Week had an axe to grind with each other.
That's what we had credible intelligence to believe.
And you told that to the manager of the hotel.
That some of the bikes, yes,
Grand
sir.
Hotel.
Some of the gangs did, yes.
And you also told the managers that there was a concern for motorcycle violence between the Hells Angels and the other outlaw motorcycle gang members. Did you not?
That's correct.
And it is a known law enforcement fact, is it not, Lieutenant, that these biker gangs carry all kinds of weapons?
Absolutely.
And that was information that was known to you and everybody in management at the Grand Hotel before this week. True?
I would presume so.
You don't presume so. You told them, didn't you? That's exactly what you told them, isn't it?
We discussed that we had found weapons in last year's issue, as well as the use of bulletproof vests at that time.
We just went through what you told them, didn't we, Lieutenant? Didn't we just talk about that?
Those generalized terms, yes, sir.
Okay. And so, are you telling the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that it was a total surprise to you, Lieutenant Smitley, that there was violence between these motorcycle gangs that week?
Yes.
A total surprise.
For this incident, yes.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit, if I could, about this time frame right here. And I think I've changed my strategy. Could you pull up the hood clip, please? And pause it as soon as you get it going, please. Now, Lieutenant Smitley, you said that you have reviewed these security tapes, true?
Correct.
And you know that what we're looking at here is Sergeant Hood's patrol car in the driveway of the Grand Hotel, right?
That's right.
And there's a great big blur of light right in the middle of his car.
Yes, sir.
And that's because he's turned his overhead lights on.
Yes, sir.
And that was not at the time he made this first call at 11:30 a.m. I mean, to 11:30 a.m. That's not then, right?
I'm not sure what the time is right now connected to when he made the call.
Okay, you're not aware of the fact that Sergeant Hood has testified that he had about 6 Hells Angels come by him on motorcycles?
No, I'm aware of that. I just don't know the relative timing.
And he made a call when he saw those 6 Hells Angels on his radio.
Correct.
And you were monitoring the radio call.
Yes, sir.
And what Sergeant Hood said is send backup.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was at 2:11:30. True?
Absolutely.
And then he had about 30 or 40 more Hells Angels come around his patrol car. Run that, please. These are all Hells Angels we're seeing, right?
Yes.
And when Sergeant Hood made this first call, calling for backup, you, Lieutenant Smitley, did not respond to that call. True?
I didn't know.
You were still in the police station.
Yeah, that's correct.
And when he calls at 2:12:30, he says, send all available units. There's going to be a fight. And you heard that call. True?
Yes, that's correct.
And you did not respond at that point in time either, did you, Lieutenant?
No.
And you did not respond at all because you thought that it was not yet a crisis. Isn't that what you testified to?
That's correct. It was not my responsibility as Operation Chief to respond at that point.
Did you understand my question?
Yes, sir, I did.
You said before that the reason you didn't respond, it was because it was not yet a crisis.
That's correct.
Now, let me ask you if you agree with this concept, Lieutenant. Do you agree with the law enforcement axiom that it's easier to prevent a riot than it is to stop a riot? Do you agree with that?
It depends on the circumstances.
So you can't say one way or another?
It would be dependent on each circumstance.
Okay. So you didn't respond to this situation at the Grand Hotel until after the fight had already started. Is that a true statement?
That's correct.
And we know that the fight started at, can we see the chronology, please? Fight starts at 2:16:08, right?
Yes, sir.
Where you were located was less than 2 minutes from the Grand Hotel, right?
About that, yes, sir.
And so if you, Lieutenant Smitley, had responded when there was a first call for backup at 2:11:30, you would have been able to have been in Rose's bar along with anybody else you decided to bring with you from the police station long before the fight started. Agree?
That's possible, yes, sir.
Well, you said when you finally left the police station to go to the Grand Hotel, it took you less than 2 minutes to get there, didn't you?
That's correct.
And so we got a minute here, a minute 29. So you would have been in Rose's bar sometime in this time frame had you left when the first call for backup came in, right?
I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay. And you will agree with me, I think, Lieutenant, that one of the most important aspects of crime prevention is a police presence. Do you agree with that concept?
That's one of the things we try to enforce, yes, sir.
And you will agree with me that at the time this fight started, there was not a police presence in Rose's bar, was there?
No, sir, there was not.
And there could have been, had you responded timely. True?
I don't know.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the security that was in place at the bar. Can we roll that tiny clip, please?
Tiny Strager?
Please. Okay, stop that for just a second, Liz, if you would, please. Okay, now we're in Rose's bar here, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is a tape that you have reviewed previously, true?
Correct.
And we got a green arrow here. Green arrow's on the perp, right?
That's correct.
And there is a security officer in the bar, isn't there?
Yes.
Roll it, please. And he's the individual over the right-hand side of the screen by the slot machine, bald-headed guy with a white shirt on.
Yes, sir.
And he's going right up toward where the conflict is, right? Then the fight breaks out, right? And then stop it right there, please. Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what this security officer is doing here?
I think I can. He looks like he's running.
He's hauling ass, isn't he?
Well, if that's as fast as he can run, that's what
Play the rest of it, please. And now here he goes. He's taking off. He's leaving the scene of the fight. Fast as he can get out of there, isn't he?
10 minutes, counsel.
Yes, sir. He fled.
And let me ask you this question, Lieutenant. In your opinion, is it easier to stop a fight if the security guy hauls ass or stays there and tries to confront it? Do you have an opinion about that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And it's going to be better if he stays there and tries to stop the fight?
That depends.
Well, if he leaves the scene, there's nobody in Rose's bar that can do anything to stop this fight. True?
That's correct.
Because you didn't respond to the first call, and the security guy hauled ass, right?
I don't completely agree with that.
You know, what part don't you agree with?
The presumption that I had an obligation to respond to the first call personally.
I'm just saying you didn't respond.
No, I did not.
And if you had responded, you could have been, stop that right there, Luke, please. I think this is before the fight breaks out, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And if you had responded when the first call for backup came, you could have been standing in Rose's bar, armed with backup officers with you, true?
It depends on so many different things. At this point in time, I didn't have any trouble getting into the bar after the fight occurred because so many people fled out of the bar, so there was a lot more availability. But due to the heavy packed, if it was prior to the fight, it may have taken much longer to actually get to Rose's bar. So that's my difficulty with your question. I apologize.
That's all right. I've got lots more questions. One of them is this. Let's talk about when this fight stopped, okay?
Yes, sir.
And you know about what happened that caused this fight to stop, don't you?
I hope it's police presence and our assertion of force in order to affect the peace.
Are you asking me?
No, you just asked me what I know.
Well, the truth of it is, what we know is that Sergeant Hood went into Rose's bar, right?
That's correct.
Discharged his firearm once at a gang member, right?
Yes, sir.
And he said when that happened, everything just stopped. It was weird. Do you remember his testimony about that?
Yes.
So what we know is that one armed police officer can stop this riot that's in full swing. It's a fact, isn't it?
That's what happened on this occasion.
And so are you telling the ladies and gentlemen of this jury that one armed police officer in Rose's bar before the fight breaks out couldn't have stopped it? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's all I've got. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, I believe there was some redirect that wanted to be posed to the witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Counsel asked you what if you responded. And I think you tried to explain that to him, but he wasn't hearing you. Tell the jury what you were saying when you said, no, I did not respond.
Yeah. My role as operational chief was to oversee all the operations for the entire city. And we had a number of hotels, a number of incidents. So I was coordinating those activities, and we were identifying available officers to respond once we received the first request from Sergeant Hood. It just took some time to get everybody there.
So would you, as the person coordinating any response, would you expect yourself to immediately get up from your chair or wherever you were and flee over to the bar?
No, it would not be an expectation.
What would your role be?
Is to coordinate our resources to ensure the safety of everyone in the community while responding to this incident.
And how did you actually respond? And since we know you didn't go over there immediately, how did you respond to the call that you got, the first call from at 2:11:30 and the second call at 2:12:30 when all of those Hells Angels were going by his patrol car?
We identified available units and assigned them to go back up Sergeant Hood.
So tell the jury what you have to do. We all watch TV, but what do you do? Do you call them?
Well, yeah, we will call them on the radio, and we'll assign the closest units in order to arrive there as quickly as possible. In this case, with the known potential specific interaction, that was one of the surprises you'd asked me about earlier, is that police sometimes will exacerbate the violence between biker gangs and law enforcement, where private security may actually have a better mechanism because they don't view us the same way. And so that was one of the things here, is to identify the available units. We also contacted our undercover officers that were in this hotel to get additional intelligence so that we could have an appropriate response.
All right, so you called the officers that you considered available to respond immediately, and you also called your undercover agents there that were in the hotel. Is that right?
That's correct.
But you did not place a call to the hotel itself, to the Grand.
No.
All right. And at no time did you inform the Grand Hotel that during this bike week they were that there was any intel that there would be a fight to break out at the Grand Hotel. Is that right?
That's correct. They were not targeted.
2 minutes,
from our
Counsel.
intelligence.
And you received no information from any bikers or any other persons that there had been an earlier altercation of the Mongols injuring someone who was a Hells Angel. Is that right?
That did not come through me.
So you just didn't have that information.
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can, anything else? All right, you can step down, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take our lunch break at this time. As I understand it, there's going to be lunch provided, a box lunch. If you would, please be back in the area, ready to reconvene and start again at 1:15. All rise for the jury, please.
Thank you, thank you. It's 12:30 now? Thanks. What time is it now? 12:05? Okay.